would now like to call to order the regular village council meeting of March 3rd, 2020. Can we all stand? A moment of silence.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the record reflects those who are present. I will now call the roll. Village Attorney Serafian.
Present.
Village Manager Benton.
Here.
Councilman Brady.
Here.
Councilman Lafredo.
Here.
Councilman Meltz.
Here.
Vice Mayor Birch. Mayor Wagger.
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you. We'll start with our presentations today. And our first presentation is the House of the Month. And this month's House of the Month is a home located at 55 Northwest 92nd Street. Homeowner is Isabella Petrozelli. Is that correct? In her capacity as a realtor 10 years ago, Ms. Petrozelli came to Miami Shores to show properties that were for sale. And instantly, she was captivated by the beauty of Miami Shores and was motivated to purchase a home in this charming, in our charming community. And since then, Ms. Petrozelli has been the chief designer of the exterior of the property. Her attention to detail and the relentless maintenance of the property is quite evident. She kept the design simple and inviting, assuring the pristine walls of the structure complemented the gray driveway. I like that. Miami Shores is glad that she stumbled upon the village as a realtor, but even more happy that she has chosen to stay as a resident. Is Ms. Petrozelli here tonight? Okay. Well, congratulations to her. It's beautiful. And Mr. Manager, if you could make sure she gets her certificate, that'd be great. Looks good. Next up, item 4B, we'll have a presentation of the Country Club Advisory Board. It's their annual report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Mark Gallo, Pedro Rajo. My address is 933 Northeast 99th Street, Miami Shores, of course. I'm going to give you a little year in review of 2019 Miami Shores Country Club. Pedro's going to go through some of it. I'm going to go more into the restaurant and the beverage and all that kind of stuff, and he's going to go into the golf a little bit. So first of all, you guys realize that the club is open every day for golf and lunch, and we have brunch on Sunday. And what we're doing lately is we're having some nice Thursday night evenings, kind of called pop-up nights. Some of you guys noticed, they advertise it on Facebook, Instagram, and word of mouth, and of course some of the local publications. Basically what that is they'll have like a tequila, tacos night, cigar night, scotch night together, things like that. They actually had Groove Dogs, which was a big rock and roll band, local guy came here. It was pretty good night. So they're doing a lot of things on Thursday night. They also open on Friday nights as well. But these are things that some of the local residents don't realize that the place is open. So that's some of the things to do. Also, the brunches have been fantastic, and the holiday brunches are even better. I mean, you have the brunch with Santa was 300 people. I mean, Thanksgiving was 400. Easter was 700. Mother's Day was 700. Father's Day was 400. So, Dad kind of got slighted a little bit. But I mean, that's the way it goes with Dad. But, so it was unbelievable. New Year's Eve had over 200 people there. So this has really been unbelievable what's going on in the club last couple of years. The charity tournaments that they have are phenomenal for the golf. The best value you're going to get anywhere for a golf tournament is Miami Shores Country Club. They work with the charity. They work with you. They really help you. It's really nice that they do that. The next one that's coming up is April 24th, which is the chamber tournament, the local chamber tournament here. They're going to honor Ted Critchmar, which is great. One of our local residents for years has done tons for this community. So that's going to be great. And like I said, it's the best value. The other thing people don't realize is that this course is a home course for a lot of local schools around the area. So for where they practice, you have Country Days been practicing here for years. You have Cushman, you have Barry University, Johnson & Wales, and now they're going to have St. Rose, which is pretty exciting. So they accommodate all the local schools to do a lot of things. So they do a lot of things other than just golf for Pedro and I. So it's really nice. Also, you got to look at the staff there. It was some of the things I wanted to bring up. There's a bunch of anchors at that place that really do a great job. And the management over there is unbelievable. You have Chris Batesel, who's the head of golf there, does a phenomenal job. I mean, you can't have a better guy running a golf course, especially a course like this. Then you have Pavel, which I don't know his last name, so he goes by Pavel, and he's our food and beverage guy. He does a fantastic job. And of course, there's Risa Strickland, who does all the big events, like the big weddings, and a lot of marketing, and a little bit about everything. So if you're going to be at the club, you come by on a Saturday, Sunday. Please stop by and say hello, Pedro and I. We could be at the bar. Pedro will buy you a drink, and don't forget about the Mayor's Ball coming up on March 14th. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
As Mark stated, I'll go into some of the golf happenings in the club for the past year. My name is Pedro Rajo. I've lived in Miami Shores for 10 years. So since 2019, the club has experienced its 8th consecutive year of revenue growth. The club has seen steady sales increases across all revenue streams. That means the events, the golf, and the food and beverage. The club this year, very exciting, has added 44 new members. And golf and banquet revenue are ahead of schedule from this time last year. It is important to note, though, that generally the golf industry is not doing as well. We've read studies that from 2013 to 2017, 1,000 golf courses have closed across the United States. So what has happened is it's leading into an intense competition between those that are left, which leads to price discounting. Obviously, the club's not having that big of a problem because the revenue is growing. Also, that same article that I read, Florida municipal courses have lost quite a bit of money, around the tune of $65 million during that same time. So it just seems like the trend that there's less and less people playing golf. Now, that being said, the club does have its challenges currently out. It just had its 100-year anniversary, so the golf course and the clubhouse are aging. So a large amount of the capital budget that goes into each year into maintaining the course. You know, if an AC unit goes down, if the cart path repair, things like that. As the advisory board, and we have Marty here, who's been on the board and a member a very long time, to us, we see our role as to collaborate with the club personnel, Alberto and Pavel and Chris and Risa, to make little changes, and we believe those little changes add up to big things. Some of the things that the club has done in the past year that we believe are leading to really big things for the club in the future is, and we've talked about this before, they installed the turf mats. That allows the grass to heal more frequently, and it gives it a better playing condition than the old mats. They've added addition of chairs to the range, so it's kind of like a really nice feel. You'll see a lot of families out there now. We notice a lot more kids with their families. The parents are sitting out there. Children are hitting balls. Also, what I didn't realize in preparing for this presentation was that the club has actually planted in the last several years 300 trees on the course, including 60 in the past year. Those trees include Dade County pines, royal palm trees, and jacaranda trees, to name a few. We got a new golf cart fleet, leased golf cart fleet last year, and the club continues to improve and repair cart path areas. They've also installed new ball washers last year, and a large amount of the budget does go to maintain the golf course and specifically the greens, which are arguably the best in South Florida. Some of the future improvements that we have in the works, we have a new ice and water dispenser. I've talked about this in the past, but it is coming in June. There's been some delays. Now we're also going to suggest some new signage for the club around the range and the cart path only, just to help with branding of the club specifically, kick it up a little notch. And then installation of hand sanitizers around the club possibly. And that's all we have right now that we could think of for the club moving forward. But again, this would not be possible at all if it wasn't for Alberto and his team. It's really working with them, to me, is incredible, because it's, even when we bring suggestions, it goes up for discussion and they say, you know, we could do this, we can't, this is why we can't do it. So it's not a hard no right off the bat. It's a learning process for all of us. Many advisory board members, including Marty, have been members here for 30 years and have been playing for 30 years. I know Mark has been for 10 years and I've been for 5 years, and we could say that the club has never been in better shape than it is right now. And they continue, it's a constant improvement with everything they do. I want to thank you all for your service and your time, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Does anyone have any questions?
One question is, you didn't mention anything special about family night, but I know you've had a few family nights.
Yes.
You've had a lot of kids
Yes.
that have come and had their own entertainment while the parents
Yes.
had dinner, things like that.
Yes,
So-
correct. They do have family nights. They have the brunch with Santa, as Mark mentioned. They have the Easter Bunny comes to the club as well.
Thursday night family night where they'll bring in and they'll have a section of the club, one of the bigger board rooms. They'll have all the kids come in and they'll bring babysitters from maybe the rec center to help, facilitate the kids, and then the parents can have dinner there. So that's actually been very successful, yes.
I mean, like I told Alberto and Chris, I mean, from my perspective, the club has kicked it up a notch. Just in terms of service and staff, it's just been incredible. They work really hard, and they always make and it's not just for us, it's for the outside play too as well. You see, they hustle, they work hard, they're trying to keep things going and just keep everything in order. So I know the older I get, I realize how lucky I am to have the club this close.
Councilman Lafredo?
Yeah, I just want to commend the advisory board for their service and to let them know that I had an event there in December, the mid-December, and we were in the small room near the bar, and they just did a wonderful job with us, and I was just so pleased, and thank you for that.
Yes.
Yeah, I do want to thank you guys for your service. I really greatly appreciate it, and I've used the club a lot, and I had my parents' 50th wedding anniversary there as well, and they did a great job in the large room. And I do miss family nights. That's fun, and I've enjoyed that as well. I was there for the Super Bowl, so it's a good time. So thank you, and I can see that it's
Yeah.
moving forward, and
Yes.
it's greatly appreciated. The community appreciates it.
We will bring the feedback back about the family night
Yeah,
to the club.
that's a huge success,
Absolutely.
and
We will
us
do that
tired
right away.
mothers would love that. Okay, it's a nice time to have a date with your girlfriends and leave your kids, and bring your
Absolutely.
kids. So
We will get back to them
thank
immediately.
you, thank you very much. Any other comments? Thanks for
They
taking
have
the
a
time.
lot of fun.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, you mean the kids or us?
Yeah, I think you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent report.
At this time on the agenda, we will have our public comments. If you're here to make public comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dorothy Campbell. First off, good evening, Vice Mayor Wagner, Vice Mayor Birch, and Councilman, and Village Attorney Serafon. So my name is Dorothy Campbell. I live at 385 Northeast 91st Street. I've been there for 27 years. And the last time I was here was at the January 21st council meeting where Jonathan Meltz introduced and delivered the ordinance for the prohibition of single-use plastic water bottles here on Village County property, and which was also moved and adopted with a 4-0 vote at the first reading. So I'm here to ask the village attorney, Richard Serafon, to please continue with the support of the ordinance, and please, I ask of you to continue with the challenge against the Florida Retail Federation. And with that being said, I am now going to, the second thing I'm here for is that I'm here to support the resolution proposed by Vice Mayor Birch regarding the use of fertilizers for the Miami Shores Village staff to develop a best management practice plan for Miami Shores residents. And the reason I am here to support that is because of the fertilizers are commonly used substances that aid the growth of many different plants, fruits, and vegetable species. Unfortunately, these substances are toxic and create undesirable organic reactions. Fertilizers can also be very damaging to the marine ecosystem. Fertilizers reach marine ecosystem through runoff. When it rains, the growth aids and into the soil drift. These substances eventually make their way to the waterways. They flow through the water and are eventually carried to the ocean. Once they reach the ocean, the many nutrients, including the high level of nitrogen that the fertilizers are carrying, are released into the water. When such strong levels of these nutrients are released, some of the algae species explode into growth. These growth explosions are known as red or brown tides, developing on the type of algae affected. As the algae blooms, it releases harmful toxics. In normal levels, these toxins would not have much effect on the marine creatures. However, in large amounts, these toxins can easily poison many different types of marine life. In addition, algae requires a great deal of oxygen in order to grow. Because of this, the water may become oxygen deprived, suffocating other marine creatures. Sometimes the algae and its toxins are so overwhelming that an ecosystem is essentially shut down. Whole areas may become dead spots, places where normal marine life can no longer thrive or live at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for public comment?
Hello, my name is Aaron Stauber. I live at 10155 Collins Avenue in Bell Harbor. And I'd like to say thank you very much to the mayor, the vice mayor, and council members. I'm here as an intern with Miami Waterkeeper in connection with the proposed fertilizer resolution. I applaud Vice Mayor Birch's initiative in proposing the resolution and opening a discussion for consideration of a fertilizer ordinance. I was born and raised in Miami Beach, and I remember the beaches when they were safe to swim in all the time, year-round. I'm now a grandfather of 2, and I hope my grandchildren will be able to experience the beauty of South Florida that I was blessed with. I'm not a science guy, but regulating fertilizer use in Miami shores is just common sense. We know that added levels of nitrogen and phosphorus are the main culprits behind algae blooms and seagrass die-offs. We know that in fertilizers, the key components are nitrogen and phosphorus. And we also know that if you put fertilizer on your lawn during our summer rainy season, most of it is just going to wash right off into the bay and do nothing for your lawn. I would like to suggest reasons for passing an ordinance rather than just a voluntary program. As Vice Mayor Birch notes in her letter to Council, the South Florida Water Management District states that the best management practice is to not apply fertilizer from June 1st to September 30th. To date, more than 80 municipalities across the state have fertilizer ordinances in place. They realize that science has shown that a mandatory summer blackout period can really move the needle in preventing impairment of our waterways from excess nutrients. Practically speaking, the ordinance is directed more at commercial landscape contractors who profit from excessive application of fertilizer, as opposed to homeowners. Educating the public is effective with homeowners. Miami Shores is blessed with canals and a beautiful coastline on Biscayne Bay. But with this gives rise the responsibility to be a good steward of our precious waterways. We are all in this together. We may not be able to have a direct impact on climate change, but at least we can try to change the things we do have control over, like what we put into the water we drink and we swim in. I applaud the village for being at the forefront of environmental issues. I encourage you to continue your leadership with regard to best management practices relating to fertilizer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello. Alina Nunez, 775 Northeast 97th Street. I'd like to read a permit application to the council and ask the council to consider changing it and making it a bit more specific and changing the amount. So it's section 6.4 permits, application general. No person shall erect or construct or proceed with the erection or construction of any building or structure, nor add, enlarge, move, improve, alter, convert, extend, or demolish any building or structure, on and on and on, or cause the same to be done where the cost of the work is $100. Now, I don't know when this law was enacted or this ordinance enacted, but anything is $100 this day. From what I understand from other cities, they have something similar, although it's a lot more specific, because to me, as a property owner, that is just not specific enough. Basically, you do anything, you need a permit. So, and like I said, other cities have it with at least $500 to $1,000. And it goes on to say not only any alterations or so forth, but any remodeling or any alteration job of any value needs a permit. Okay? And interesting enough, it goes on to say without first obtaining a building permit, but it also says that no permit, there's an exception, no permit shall be required to paint any single family residence. I don't know about you all, but I've paid twice for a permit to paint my house. And here explicitly it says that it's not necessary. So I'm asking the council to read this, to change it, to make it specific so we can all understand exactly when it is we need a permit and when we don't. And $100 is just probably, 25, 50 years ago this law was in order. So if you're interested, I have copies of the ordinance that you can take a look at and change, hopefully. Thank you. There's copies for everybody. Thank you for your consideration.
Is anyone else here to make public comment? Seeing that there are no other comments, public comment is now adjourned. And we will move on. Madam Clerk?
Item 6A, approval of the February 4th, 2020 Village Council meeting minutes.
I'd like to move that.
Go ahead.
I'd like to move that we approve the meeting minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Item 7A, an ordinance of the Village Council of Miami Shores Village, Florida, relating to zoning, Appendix A, amending Article 5, Division 4, Area Regulations, Section 518, Fences, Walls, and Hedges, providing for conflicts, codification, severability, and effective date. Staff on this item is the Planning and Zoning Director.
I'll start with you, Mr. Director.
Madam Mayor, the concern was that this is a revision to something that was tabled previously.
Correct.
I think the director would be more comfortable if before he gave his presentation, you moved to lift it from the table, and then we could...
To lift it from the table. All right. Do I have a motion to lift it from the table?
I'll move to lift it from the table.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Ta-da.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Hi, Travis Kendall, Planning and Zoning. So, again, just to revisit this, there was some questions or concerns which was addressed by the Planning and Zoning Board in the past. A new design was brought forward for fencing on commercial properties. However, at this time, staff sort of through some revisions and having some discussion has brought forth a new revised version for you. This is more specific to property owners who are in the process of redeveloping their property or have intention to redevelop their property. So what this allows specifically is not for commercial fencing anywhere in the village. This is very specific for properties that are going to be redeveloped or in the process of being redeveloped, which allows for a temporary fence to be placed around commercial properties in front yard areas to secure it during the redevelopment process. Specifically, a green or black vinyl chain link of a temporary nature, only for properties which have had a building demolished. So that is the revised version in front of you. In addition to that, staff would ask that under the ordinance, Section 518, line 32 and 33 be deleted, as it is a duplicate of line 30 and 31. So if you read it,
It's just a typo.
yeah, it's
Paragraphs in
just
here
it,
twice.
it got in there twice, but it's the same sentence twice. So if line 32 and 33 on the ordinance itself could be deleted between first and second reading, if you all are so inclined to pass it in its current condition. So happy to answer any questions at this time.
Sir, sorry, Mr. Seraphin.
Yeah, just for purposes of clarification, there are some property in the village where there were commercial structures. The commercial structures have been torn down. It's a vacant lot. Property owners would love, for liability and other purposes, to fence it in. You know, we don't, God forbid anything should happen, we don't want people on vacant lots where the building's been torn down. And our current code prohibits it. So in an effort to address that, we've taken into account the very cogent comments from the last time about, well, heck, the way it was written last time, Publix could put a 6-foot fence in the front yard, and we've strictly limited this to properties where the structure has been demolished, it's vacant, and it's headed towards redevelopment.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Lafredo, yes.
I have a question. It talks about in paragraph 12, this is a new paragraph 15, but in paragraph 12 it talks about temporary construction site fencing. That isn't in conflict with the present. That's a separate issue.
Correct. You get that after you've gotten an approved building permit. And as you know, sometimes properties will be torn down and there'll be a substantial time lag before a building permit is approved for the redevelopment, and meanwhile, we don't want kids or vagrants or whatever, necessarily having access to the property, especially where the owner wants to fence it in.
So the next question then is, what's the time limit on these temporary fences in number 15?
There is none. And how long, if again, we're relying somewhat on market forces. There's no revenue generated by a vacant lot, but you're still paying taxes. So we would expect there's already plenty of incentive for these property owners to move it along. But how long would you want to limit them to have a fence around it? I mean, when do you want to tear the fence down and let people on? My attitude, again, I don't like to speak to policy, is as long as it's vacant and as long as it's a potential problem and hazard, as long as they want to keep the fence up, it's okay with us. There's plenty of incentive to make vacant property into income-producing property. That's what commercial property is for.
I have nothing further.
Any other comments, questions? Vice Mayor Birch?
When you have a partial demolition of a commercial building, is there any part of this that would apply? Only if it's completely demolished.
Well, if you're doing a partial demolition under an approved building permit, you can have your construction fence. But theoretically, once you finish the demolition and the permit is finalized out, that temporary construction fence is no longer lawful without this change we're proposing.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval, Madam Mayor.
I'll second that.
Thank you. That's okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Item 8A, a resolution of the Village Council of Miami Shores Village, Florida, creating budget amendment number 6 to the fiscal year 2019-2020 operating budgets, transferring $875,000 from the general fund to the capital projects fund for the Aquatic Center's Wild Waters Park. Staff on this item is the finance director through the village manager.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I may. Contained within your packet is a memo from me that basically outlines Ms. Hugdall's recommendation. As I outlined, we received $875,000 in code liens from a particular property. We had already transferred $1 million, and thanks to Mr. Seraphin there for working hard on that one to bring them to the table and collecting exactly. So the money is in our bank. The check's cleared, and it's our money. We have previously, as I said in my memo, transferred $1 million as part of the aquatics facilities renovation. It left a little over $800,000. So Ms. Hugdell was going to recommend we get a bank loan. Now that we've received this money at this particular time, we're recommending that we just earmark this money for the final or the total payment, if you will, of the new facility. We'll then have the $1.8 million in place. You won't have to borrow any money, and we're whole. We can do this project without any debt.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any comments or questions?
Well, I have a comment. I think this is great, absolutely great. I'm so relieved that we don't have to borrow money, and I thank you for the planning and execution.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Item 9A, discussion and possible action regarding the use of fertilizers in Miami Shores and directing staff to develop a best management practices plan for Miami Shores. This item is sponsored by Vice Mayor Alice Birch.
Vice Mayor Birch?
So thank you, and thank you for those people that made comments. I really appreciate it. As I went over this idea, I've been thinking about bringing up something about fertilizers for some time, and it seemed like a kind of quiet time in council agendas, so I thought it was a good time to do it, and it's far enough in advance of what usually is in the spring fertilizing season. I had a personal experience over the post-Irma recovery period when, and I might have mentioned this before, when I realized that some of the rocks that you're required to put in after a seawall fails were coated with algae that I had really never seen before. I know that sometimes you find algae in areas of the bay, but this seemed to coincide with some of the algae blooms that we were experiencing during the summer. And I realized that I had never really seen it posted anywhere that fertilizing is recommended to be from the month of October on through the month of May, and not during the summer months. And I see it as a positive to make recommendations to our residents along those lines. Now that we have someone in communications who's been very effective, I think, in getting messages out that might not otherwise have made it out. These small, they're not sound bites, but whatever bites they are, have been very effective, I think, in reminding people of these things. And as far as the ordinance, I think about our backyards and how difficult it is to enforce an ordinance. It's not that I'm in any way opposed to having an ordinance, but an unenforceable ordinance, I think, perhaps has got to be fine-tuned to this village, and we might be better going for an ordinance after we have tried to implement best management practices on our own. You know, sometimes this makes flagrant violations come to the fore, and we might be having it more top of mind, might make us realize that we need stronger teeth. But to initially go the way I've seen it recommended with some other changes that we have to make at this time in our environmental life, it's better to try to go forward with something positive at first and then see what happens. So that's my take on it, and I'm interested in your thoughts.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Brady.
Madam Mayor. I want to thank Vice Mayor Birch for bringing this forward. As somebody that grew up in Florida and had extensive experience with learning about the water system, spending time in the Everglades, spending time learning about how the water cycle works here. and doing native gardening and only planting native stuff since probably say like 2004. I mean, fertilizer is basically completely unnecessary in Florida. None of our native stuff requires it because it didn't exist in the environment, and that's why the Everglades struggles and fills up with cattails and other stuff that's not supposed to be there, and why they're making such a big effort to get the sugar farmers away from that watershed, because all of that stuff that gets in there is very damaging to our entire ecosystem, and does cause significant problems in the bay. And the other point I think that was made by the gentleman from the water keepers that spoke was that in the summer, when we have our heavy rains, the fertilizer application is not it doesn't actually work. It gets washed away by the rain anyway. Like that's one of the kind of the problems with applying it that time of year. And what I know you're supposed to use like a mulching lawnmower and do things like that so that your own plant material goes back into there. But I mean, I think that we absolutely need to. A lot of people don't know any of that and think that for their yard to be healthy, it has to be fertilized. So I think education campaign would be really great. But I also noticed on page 3 of the memo from the water keepers, the things where it talks about like, hey, it's not so much about banning individuals' use of fertilizer on their property, but helping to better like educate and regulate the commercial vendors that do it. Because they definitely come with a very different message to you, right, when selling the service. And I think if they could somehow be, looped into this, that would really help reinforce whatever we do as from a resident, education program. But I do think that some of the other things that you mentioned here, like marking our storm drains, are great because they do remind people that what goes in there goes directly. It's not going into a water treatment facility. It's going directly into the bay. So just thank you for bringing this up.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. I would like to say, Vice Mayor Birch, that I am one of those people that were not aware of this, and as we go into this era of learning about how we can protect our environment, I appreciate it. I think the recommendations are good. I had no idea when was a good time to put fertilizer. I didn't know I was supposed to be using it. I'll stop. But I think most importantly, I think there are a lot of people like myself who aren't aware of the effects of fertilizer on our environment, and particularly our bay, that we need to protect. So this was very helpful information. I read all of the water keepers memo and then some subsequent information. So this is very good. I have some concerns about mandating it, but I think right now getting the information out there is very important. So I would be inclined to support this. Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Yes, ma'am.
Comments?
So I just want to make sure that our instructions are clear. So staff will take this literature and whatever other literature we research. We'll put together a program, if you will, or an education packet.
Correct.
Would you like to see it back here first, Vice Mayor, or since it's your item, or would you like us to put it out through our communications specialist? How do you want me to handle it?
Well, I mean, either way, if council would prefer to see it ahead of time, that's fine. Maybe many heads would figure out some other items to bring up and make sure that we include. But I think mainly we're looking for a dialogue that would resonate with our residents that is concise and simple, but raises awareness. So that's it.
We'll keep it simple.
Madam
Mr.
Mayor,
Lafredo? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I share your views that I was not aware of this until the excellent presentation in the packet by Vice Mayor Birch, and then also the speakers from the public and Mr. Brady, his comments. I think we ought to look, maybe not right now, we ought to adopt this now, and I support it, but we ought to look maybe in a year or two to enacting an ordinance when we go through the things that Vice Mayor discussed.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Serafin.
Part of the package was a very well-done resolution that I would recommend someone move and second, and we pass that, and that should give Tom the direction that he's looking for.
Well, before we do that, I would like to suggest, I'd like to see the language before we put it out there. I'd just like to see it. And you're right, we may add to it, but this is great.
There it is, okay.
And having said that, do I have a motion to move the resolution as proposed by Vice Mayor Birch?
I would move that we approve the resolution as proposed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
It's a really good resolution.
It is
I really-
great.
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Fine.
Item 9B, discussion and possible action regarding possible community walk or bike ride along future Flagler Trail. This item is sponsored by Vice Mayor Alice Birch.
Madam Mayor, I have this idea that the history of this is that we have been doing a community bike ride for several years now. I think 2014 was the first one, and it was an offshoot of Bike or Walk to School Day in the spring and fall. So the idea that we would have one is certainly not out of the ordinary. The Recreation Department didn't put one in the plans this year, and so I thought, since we had this discussion about the Flagler Trail, and we were talking about trying to get the idea in people's minds that this could possibly exist in the future, and that we have property along the railroad tracks. I had a meeting with Eli Stiers, and he is on the County Transportation Board, and he has also been very active in trying to promote these kinds of trails. In fact, has a position on Rails with Trails. And so they have done a lot of work at the county level to try to raise awareness about the Flagler Trail. And he offered his help, as well as Urban Health Partnerships, which is the organization that put together the information about the Flagler Trail that we studied the last time when we had this come up. So working with the manager in the police department, we had this preliminary little meeting about where would we go and how would we do it. And a bike ride is favored because you can move people a little faster through the route and not take up as much time of the person's day, of the people's day, the family's day. So you can actually get to points that are near the railroad track. You can stop and have refreshment and discuss some of the history of the rail and how we could be part of a group that really would build awareness. And so we were talking about a date in April that we could have this. So what do you think? My question.
Comments?
Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor Birch, I think it's a great idea. So you're just saying to put together our community bike ride kind of in the tradition we have, but add an element of, hey, this is the Flagler Trail area. Maybe I think it's a great idea. I would support that.
Yes. And we would have our police escorts, which always gives families a chance to go out when they might not otherwise, because they know that there'll be some help with the traffic. And we're talking about a Sunday morning.
Are we looking to partner with adjoining municipalities?
Yes, very definitely. We would ask Biscayne Park and El Portal to be part, and we would loop down through El Portal and back up to Biscayne Park.
So they would be sharing their resources as well, wouldn't just be...
If I may,
Mr. Manager?
No, ma'am. We would handle the whole deal.
Okay.
Our police would. We've tried this in the past, and when you pass it off from the bike ride into Biscayne Park, then you got to pass it back into Miami Shores, then you pass it into El Portal, then you pass it back to Miami Shores. That's cumbersome. We've got people that are really skilled at doing these bike rides and leading them, so they would just lead it through the whole. On the whole route. I've been in contact with the manager of El Portal already, and I will be shortly with whoever's the manager of Biscayne Park these days, and we'll find out what's going on over there, and we'll work with them.
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Lafredo.
Just a request. Can we go by the Indian Mound?
Oh, I love it
Is it possible? I mean, consider it. I'm going to. I amend to what Councilman Brady said, but I'd love to go by the Indian Mound. Anyway.
And Madam Mayor, I did have a question for you. Would you like to call this the Mayor's Bike Ride? Because I feel that that would give this some. There, many cities do Mayor's Bike Rides. We've never done one that was called a Mayor's Bike Ride, but I think that this would be a great time to get some constituents on bikes that maybe hadn't thought about it before.
Okay, I would be honored to do so. Thank you. Yes. So do we have a consensus that we all agree that this is a good idea and we should move forward? Yes. Yes, we have a consensus. Well, Mr. Manager, we look forward to your planning.
We got it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Village announcements. The annual father-daughter dance will be held on March 13th at 7 p.m. at the 9900 Northeast 2nd Avenue building. The Miami Shores Annual Mayor's Gala will be held on Saturday, March 14th, 2020 at Miami Shores Country Club. Tickets may be purchased at the Miami Shores Community Alliance's website. The spring concert will be held in Memorial Park on Sunday, March 15th, 2020 from 5 to 7 p.m. Come join the fun. The next Village Council meeting will begin at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, March 17th, 2020 at Village Hall Council Chambers. The Sustainability and Resiliency Committee is looking for 7 volunteers. If you're interested in serving, please visit the village website to apply or contact the village clerk at 305-762-4870. The deadline to apply is March 20th, 2020. Come join the fun at Plaza 98 Bingo Night on Saturday, March 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. on Northeast 2nd Avenue and 98th Street. There will be food, entertainment, and lots of fun. And would you rather receive the newsletter via email? Residents can sign up to receive the monthly newsletter by email. Simply use the Contact Us link on the front page of our website. Be sure your email includes your name and mailing address. The communication specialist will take care of the rest. And please remember to visit the village website for more information on village events, departments, and to sign up to receive agenda notifications. Village Council comments.
We'll start with Mr. Meltz. Do you have any comments?
I do not, Madam Mayor. Thank you, though.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Birch?
I'd like to emphasize that Plaza 98 Bingo Night sounds like a lot of fun, as well as this is a time that really helps to activate our downtown. And I look forward to another one. I missed one recently, and I'm sorry I did. And I know that there was one that we had considerable rain. So I'd love to see the Plaza 98 well attended, and I hope people come out. And the other thing, I'd like to compliment the newsletter this time. It's just chock full of great stuff. And I hope that people that missed it would look it up online and then know all the great things that are going on, including a nice little section in here on don't dump into storm drains, with a picture of a storm drain. And I think that everyone should look this up in light of tonight's meeting. So enjoy your Village Hall news.
Thank you. Mr. Brady?
Thank you. I just had 2 quick things. One, for those that don't know what the Mayor's Gala or the Mayor's Ball is, it's the main fundraiser for the Miami Shores Community Alliance. That's our local charity that does a lot of great work for the supporting a lot of the other charities and community organizations in our neighborhood. And I highly encourage you to attend and support the Community Alliance. It's a lot of fun. And the other thing I did want to mention, because it did come up in public comment about the exception for house painting in the ordinance, right? And that's just because that was mandated by state law, and we had to add that. So just wanted to mention that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lafredo?
Yeah, I'm going to take a few minutes, Madam Mayor. I hope you don't mind.
I do not.
An article appeared in the Miami Herald. This is something very close to my heart, and I got really angry. And then the manager sent an email last week, and apparently they're pursuing it. So I thought, rather than, be intemperate, I'm just going to read what I wrote. And I committed it to writing, make it part of the record, and it'll probably be taken up by the Resiliency Committee. But these are my comments in opposition to proposed flood barrier wall. I am writing to formalize my opposition to the present proposal by the South Florida Water Management District, supported by the Army Corps of Engineers, to build a flood barrier wall through the heart of Miami Shores. According to a recent article in the Miami Herald, the proposed wall is planned to snake its way north some distance inland and divide neighborhoods and communities. It will have gates to let automobile traffic flow through it, but these gates will be closed in the event of hurricane or other flood event, and the seaward side of the gates will have to be evacuated. Not only will this cost billions of dollars, but the plan itself is foolish. As I understand it, the purpose of the flood barrier wall is to prevent storm tides from the Atlantic Ocean to raise the level of the water in Biscayne Bay during flood events and flooding the coastal bay areas, and I didn't put this in, but also the rivers or the canals adjacent to Biscayne Bay. Thus, if the problem is coming from the ocean, in my opinion, the solution should be to place the proposed barriers a little closer to the source of the problem. There are only 4 ways for water to get into Biscayne Bay between Fort Everglades and the Port of Miami. 2 of them are under the bridges for the MacArthur Causeway, a third is at Haulover Cut, and the 4th is the Intercoastal Waterway just south of Port Everglades. If those 4 points were blocked off by movable sea gates, the floodwaters could not access the Upper Bay nor the Hollywood area. The wall through Miami Shores would be unnecessary. These openings cannot be permanently closed, as this would negatively affect the boating industry. Attached to your copy of these comments are partial maps of Biscayne Bay and the Intercoastal Waterway, showing 3 of the access points. I trust that the 4th Haulover Cut is well known to everyone and requires no illustration. That's all I have.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing this to our attention. For those of us who weren't aware, I'll do a little bit more research on this. I have just a few things. I have a question of the manager. I had a little tickler in my calendar that reminded me to ask back in January the status of our website. It still is not completed, and I get these questions every day. We still want it to be streamlined, so I just would like to hear when we expect to have it up and moving.
We expect to have it up in April, the beginning of April. I had Ms. Keeley send you all where we're at right now, and so you can play around with it right now. And if any comments that you have, she's still got a little bit of polishing to do on it, but I think you'll find it's very easy to work with. It's very simple, streamlined compared to what we had before, and so I'm really excited and looking forward to implementing this as fast as we can.
Great, and I saw that she sent it over. I just kind of wanted to make everyone aware that she's working on it and when we expect to see it, and I do appreciate all the hard work she's put in, so thank you. Secondly, and the manager and I had a sort of a brief discussion on this. I just wanted to make sure that we are going to be disseminating information around the coronavirus and just letting people know what they can do to stay out of harm's way, if you will. So if we have any plans, Mr. Manager, could you let us know?
Sure, we are, and I don't know if you had a chance to see your email, but you and I have been invited this Thursday, along with other mayors and managers throughout Dade County, to meet with the Dade County mayor and the emergency management people this Thursday at 2:30 in the afternoon. So whatever we pick up at that meeting, we'll make sure that we get it out to the community through our communication specialist.
Very good, very good. That's exactly
Also,
right.
the League of Cities has opened up a resource website that I shared with Tom earlier today that has some good information that we could start circulating immediately.
Great. I think it's important so that people are aware and they're not in the dark about how to maybe be prepared. So thank you. And lastly, while this is outside of my comfort zone, I do want to encourage people to join us at the Mayor's Ball, the Mayor's Gala coming up March 14th. What I can say is that it promises to be a very good time, good food, good drinks, good people, and dancing all night. So I hope to see my colleagues in the house that evening, and I just hope that residents take the time to come out because the proceeds from it do go to a good cause, and we'd love to see a little bit of everybody from our community show up. We'd love to have you. All right, and that's all I have for the evening. Yes.
Madam Mayor,
Mr.
may I just say one quick thing?
Yes.
So I am sorry to report that one of our longtime residents that recently moved to Quayside, but he was very instrumental in getting the money for our doctor's charter school. Dr. Caesar Sastry passed away. I'm not sure if it was this morning or last night, but his son called me a little while before the meeting, and so I just want to let the council know. And he was, as I said, a longtime resident here, and he was part of the board of directors of the North Dade Medical Foundation that provided $10 million in total for our charter school. So I worked with him very closely. He was a great guy, and he'll be missed.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We send our deep, heartfelt condolences to his family and thank him for all that he's done for our residents and Doctors Charter. Thank you for letting us know that. Are there any other comments? Questions? Okay. We'll go with announcements, Madam Clerk. Did we do the announcements? I apologize. Okay, with there being no further business before this board, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.